So I guess we should start by saying hello, everybody. I'm Erica Mermuse, and this is Mohamed Ibrahim, Guide of Egypt.
Hello.
And
Hello, everybody.
yes, and we will be doing a tour in April 18th through the 29th, and we're very excited about it. And we'd like to talk to you a little bit today about what we'll experience on the tours, Mohamed's expertise, his history, what he brings to the tours, what I'll bring to the tours. So it'll be a lot of fun. And Mohamed, maybe we should start by telling people your history. I know you've been doing tours since the year 2000, so a very long time you've been doing tours.
Actually, I started working in tourism maybe before 2000.
Oh, okay.
I started this when I was studying at the university. So it was between 1997 and 2000. But my early beginning was much before this. I decided to be a tour guide when I was 10 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I live very close to Saqqara and Memphis in a city called Batrashin. And they took me in a school trip when I was in fourth grade. And I started to realize that there are foreigners in my home country, okay, in my place. And I couldn't speak with them because of the language. We didn't study English before like 12 years old. So my teacher is still alive, and I appreciate what he explained to me. He told me, you must be a tour guide if you want to talk with them and guide them. So I enjoyed the idea, and I decided to be a tour guide from that time. And when I got some high marks in the high school, I decided to go to the university, to the Faculty of Tourism. I studied as Egyptologist, and I graduated to say all the stories of Egyptology, which is, by the way, most of it is in a very academic way, and it tells us so many stories and so many sides of the ancient Egyptian facts. But I know some are not logical, especially with the technology and the knowledge of the 20th century, the 21st century. That's why when I was studying some of it, I didn't feel comfortable about what I was told, and I started to have my own questions about it. And when I graduated and I started work as a tour guide, I started to be closer and have deeper feels about the ancient Egyptian history and sites. And I started to build my own opinions. One of the great things helped me doing this, my professor of the ancient Egyptian language, Professor Abdul Halim Nuruddin, he was the best one in Egypt at the time. He taught me in a great way how to read ancient Egyptian language. And that was the key of my understanding about ancient Egypt, because so many things are being told on the walls, but it depends who is translating this.
Right.
Someone can translate this wrongly, someone can hide some facts, someone maybe don't catch the real meaning, but because I can read the language, I am Egyptian, I could understand quite differently what was written. So I mix now between the stories of Egyptology and the stories of chemitology, which is a term now many people use it instead of the alternative stories, because Egyptology is about Egypt and chemitology is about Kemet, and Egypt is Kemet, as we know.
Right. So what was your first epiphanal moment when you thought, wow, we're not really being taught the true history of what might have happened? Like, when did that occur?
I remember this like as it was yesterday. It was the Pent Pyramid at Dahshur, standing in front of the Pent Pyramid at Dahshur. And according to the stories, it was built by King Senefru. Maybe I didn't deny the stories about the history and about who built it and why and where, but I was surprised about this fact that they said it was built, or they changed the angle because a mistake happened. Then I started to, what? Mistake? who designed this great project, which required hundreds of thousands of stones brought from different locations, and I believe, I will not say thousands of workers, but let's say hundreds of workers, and it's a great project, and they are going to do a mistake. It is not a work of amateurs. It's a work of very professional, talented, advanced people. So from that point, I started to say, okay, I must find my own answers. And I put my own story about the Pent Pyramid, that the lower level is what we call it mastaba. It's like a pedestal or a base. And the upper part is the true pyramid. So we are not talking about regular shape of the pyramid like Giza Plateau pyramids, but we are talking about a story of creation. And I have, or in Egyptology stories, we do have that kind of story. We call it the creation of the world. It is a bin, which is small pyramid, above the base or the pedestal.
So what would you say are some of your favorite places to go to bring people to Egypt, to show them that maybe everything we have been taught isn't exactly true? What are some of your favorite highlights as far as when you take people on tours?
I have two places. Of course, everywhere is great,
Yes.
but I, I will talk to you, I will tell you about my own impression. The pyramids, Giza Plateau,
Yes.
and Karnak Temple. Those
Yes.
two places where I, like myself personally, I say, wow, every time I go, I keep looking and I keep trying, finding something, and I keep having that kind of deep look every time. Not just having a quick look, I see, yes, the pyramid is still there, or those kind of stones. No, every time as if this is my first time at Giza Plateau and Karnak Temple.
Yes.
But you must know that not only the site as a major site, there are some locations in each site. I always prefer to take my people to, and most of those locations are not included in the main tour for most of the other tours, because there is like a certain path for everybody. Okay, they start from the beginning to the end, joining like a middle way in the middle, and they come back the same way, and that's it.
Yeah.
Now that is not my style. I always like to go to the sides. Of course, I visit the middle, but I prefer to go to the sides and the back sides and behind the walls, behind the pillars.
Yes, I do remember that distinctly when we went to the museum. A lot of the things that were very interesting and questionable were tucked away or put in an incorrect place, like the vases from Saqqara, the diorite. Those were, you said it was a crime how they were put in that one section that
Exactly.
did not match. It was completely in the wrong place.
But of course, some objects like this, like the vases and the alabaster objects from what we call it pre-dynastic, this can change the whole history.
Right.
We can come up, we can like have new ideas and new stories about that era. We call it pre-dynastic. Okay, but I think they are not ready yet for such stories.
Right. Well, we're getting there slowly but surely. Some of the places that I never expected that totally astounded me. One would be definitely Hathor Temple at Dendera. That is just one of the most beautiful temples that you can imagine, and what you said as well, it's a temple of consciousness. And when you go in there, it has the most profound feeling when you're in that temple. It was definitely one of my favorites, and I'm sure I'll be adding to that list in the future. Also, the Osirian in Seti the First Temple. It was just breathtaking. And do you
Yes,
have any
that
ideas how old the Osirian? How old do you think the Osirian is?
okay. The first look to the Osirian, we see it close or similar to the Valley Temple of
Yes.
Giza Plateau.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, similar, maybe of course not a copy of it, but very close. And if we follow the story of dating Giza Plateau and the Sphinx, and we are talking about more than 10,000 BC, older than 10,000 BC, because the story of Dr. Robert Schoch that those structures were there at 12,000 BC.
Yes.
Not built at 12, they were there. Why? Because they get affected with the climate and the atmosphere at the time, and it was like a kind of global flood, and water affected and eroded the sides of the pyramids and the Sphinx at that time. And there was no other chance or possibility to have this effect between 3000 BC and 12,000 BC. It is 12,000. So some people, they say, okay, we can say that the Sphinx and the pyramids are 12,000 years old, or we can add 2,000, so it will be 14,000. I say no, of course, because the story says they were there. They were already built during that time. So it could be 100 years before, and it could be 100,000 years before. Considerable stories about the direction of the Sphinx to the east and looking to Leo, which is not now in the same alignment. And when it was, we are talking about 80,000 BC when that alignment was happening perfectly. Okay, so we may talk about 80,000 BC, the age of the pyramids and the Sphinx. And from that point, we can do the same to the Osirian temple, which is very similar, and it shows the same technology. It shows the same technique like the pyramid builders. So we can also talk about 80,000 BC.
I don't think a lot of people who haven't traveled to Egypt really are aware of the Valley Temple. They just think the Sphinx is there, the pyramids are there, but there's a lot more going on the Giza Plateau than what people really realize. When you go in there, you definitely know that it doesn't match. It doesn't seem like a lot of the other places. It seems unique, like the Osirian.
Of course.
Yes.
Exactly. Number one, the similar technique, we are talking about the giant blocks.
Yes.
Maybe the blocks, the granite blocks of Osirian are much bigger than the Valley Temple. Okay, but there are, I can tell you, more than 5 blocks at the Valley Temple are weighing more than 100 tons. And the unique thing of the Valley Temple, as you say, not only the granite blocks, but the limestone blocks also.
Yes.
Okay, and the design of the place, which is laying like a sandwich, granite from the outside, and then the inner level limestone, and then from inside another granite.
Yep.
So it's a giant sandwich, and each block is weighing between 50 and 100 tons, either granite or limestone. It's a great project, and if we are talking about a simple temple, we will not do this. This is against logic.
Yeah.
Who would build a temple in ancient times or even modern times? And this is like crazy job. Workers will be like completely lose their mind. Why we deal with such giant blocks?
Yes.
A block of 1 ton will be enough. 2 tons, 5 tons, but not 50 tons, 70, 100 tons. This is crazy. Unless the function required this, and the function was something completely different from being a religious temple.
Yes.
We compare between the erosions of granite in Valley Temple and another granite stone in Karnak Temple, that the stone is fallen and that's why it is broken, but we found that the outside is still in a good condition and the inside, the core of it, is crumbling.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense. So we think doing such effect must be done by a kind of very strong waves, and we thought, or we think that the most convincible thing for us now is the microwaves.
Right.
Or very strong ultrasonic waves.
Right.
Okay, but not humidity, not rain, not heat from the sun. No.
Right.
Especially with the nice conditions of Egypt. I know this is very hot in the summertime, but we don't have such severe conditions like other countries. Okay, that's why we find limestone in Egypt. It's something or great object to use in buildings and in doing statues. Why? Because of our dry weather.
Right.
So imagine limestone can survive a long time, and then you see granite is falling apart in the same place. No, it doesn't make sense.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Another thing I do remember distinctly is a lot of usurping of sites, a lot of repurposing. And from what I recall, it was literally almost every place we went. We saw statues that were probably most likely repurposed because the writing on it did not match the fine sculpting, and whoever crafted it had precision. And then you had the writing that seemed to be added later, and that seemed to be almost everywhere. If I remember correctly, there seemed to be very few places that were untouched by, it seemed like they were already there and someone might have came along or reused it.
Don't forget that the dynastic civilization lasted for around 3,000 years.
Right.
Okay, so we are talking about so many kings
Right.
and so many followers, and they couldn't resist adding their names on such great stuff.
Right.
Okay, who will resist this? It's a beautiful statue done from a great material like granite, and I have the chance to put my name on. Okay,
Right.
even as local Egyptians nowadays, when they visit the site, they love to put their names on the walls of the pyramids or the temples.
Right. I've seen
Maybe
that.
the guards are doing this now.
Right. It makes it very difficult if you just go by the writings. You have to look deeper than that.
Exactly.
Right.
And look, I feel that the ancient Egyptians didn't give us or didn't leave such sites to know who built it.
Right.
No, I think they left or made those sites to know why or how it works, not who
Right.
made it or built it.
Right.
I think this is not important to know whom. It is important to know how. And
It
when
is,
we know
yes.
how or why.
Right.
Okay, what is the reason for building this? I think this is the most important question
Right.
for us to find. That's
Yes.
why they were very not interested in putting names. I'm talking about the original builders.
Right.
Okay, they thought it is not important. Names will not add much to
Right.
the descendants, but the function
Right.
is the most important thing.
Yes, that's interesting because I still talk to people who have never been to Egypt that say, "Oh, the hieroglyphs inside the pyramid," and I'm like, "There are no hieroglyphs inside the pyramid," and they'll argue with you. They'll say, "No, there is." I'm like, "No, there isn't. Unless it was graffiti, there was no hieroglyphs, and there was no hieroglyphs at the Osirian or the Valley Temple. Like those, what seem to be the older places, do not have hieroglyphs on them. So,
Right? Yes.
yeah, and it's really
There is
interesting.
zero writings inside the Great Pyramid. Only one line of graffiti in one of the hidden chambers above the so-called king chamber, and it's not accessible. So people who say there is hieroglyphic, they didn't see that. Okay, and a small table of writings outside the pyramid at the original entrance, and that was at the 19th century.
Right.
Okay, but as you said, yes, no writings inside the pyramid, no writings inside the Valley Temple, inside the Osirian, and most of those megalithic sites, important sites, there is no any kind of writings.
Right.
I think if we read between the lines, if we read the stories from different perspectives, we will understand that the pyramids,
Right.
of course, were not tombs. Imagine that all the Egyptian kings were visiting Giza Plateau. Most of them, even Tutankhamun, they had small chapels at the area. So
Right.
how come you go and visit the cemetery? Would you like to go to the cemetery for fun and enjoy your time at the cemetery, right?
Yes. Right.
And you leave a memorial object with your name there. It doesn't make sense, okay? But if it is a place, and this is the most important thing we will talk about, the word sacred,
Right.
okay? They call it sacred place. I agree with this. But if we change the word sacred to the original word energetic, the word energetic, in my opinion, changed through times to the word sacred.
Yes,
Okay?
that's fair.
And later, the priest will control the situation and change the name to sacred place. This is what happened. Okay, so they were visiting the place as a sacred place, and this is what is mentioned on those writings you are talking about.
Right.
Sacred places. But my explanation is, no, they were not sacred, they were energetic sites.
Yes. I remember something you said on the Giza Plateau that really stuck in my mind. It was like a different perspective I'd never thought of before, but it made complete sense to me. And we were discussing, you were looking at some blocks that were fit together, and they, of course, were not uniform squares, and they were on the Giza Plateau, and they had the zigzag kind of seam to it. And you had said, you know, a lot of the theories are for like here and in Peru and wherever else in the world that the reason why they did that is to protect it from an earthquake. And you said, but what if it's not the energy from the earthquake, but the energy that the site itself is emitting, that they're protecting their own site from the energy it's creating? And it was like brilliant. I thought that was made perfect sense. If these are energetic sites.
Because their background, their culture, I'm talking about the European Egyptologists, they have earthquakes in Europe.
Right.
Okay, and they witnessed, I believe, many structures falling apart because of the vibrations of earthquakes. So when they found that technique, resisting something causing vibration, their mind said, okay, it's earthquakes.
Right.
But as I told you that day, we don't have earthquakes in Egypt,
Right.
even in the ancient times. So how come the ancient Egyptians are going to build something to resist a threat we don't have?
Right.
Unless it was another thing. So I didn't deny the story, I didn't deny the word vibrations, I denied the word earthquake.
Right.
And I said, okay, if we do have vibrations, it will be from where? So I found it's going to be from the object itself.
Right.
So they are not afraid of vibrations from outside the place, no, it's from inside the place.
Yes.
Because doing this interlocking, by the way, remember when I said about the size of the blocks, which is crazy work? This is more crazy than the size of the blocks, like shaping each block in a different design to fit the other block, and the third and the fourth and the 100. So it is impossible work to be done like this, unless it must be done this way.
Right.
And must be done this way, it must have respectable function.
Right.
Not just a function against earthquakes.
Right.
Because in other structures, and we are very sure it was built by the dynasties for a basic use, like tombs, actual tombs and actual temples, it wasn't built using that style.
Right.
It was built more easier. Okay?
Right. Because it would take forever to build. And that's another point that you had made, that you have, let's say, 100 people working on different stones. If they're making the same stone over and over, it's easy. But if they have to match another stone that someone else is carving, it would take years just to get those two giant stones to fit together to make them perfect, because you have too many different people working on it. It doesn't even make sense unless there's a purpose.
Exactly.
Right. So what do you think, in your opinion, where acoustics came to play in ancient Egypt and in these ancient times?
Of course. Look, when we talk about Hathor, as an example, as you said, and then we talk about the design of the so-called false door,
Yes.
and then we talk about the rituals must be done in certain occasions and in certain times. Some rituals daily, some rituals weekly, some rituals annually. And when we talk about certain formulas must be written in front of the gates of the temples or the rooms, it is all connected with sound.
Right.
Sound was very important in ancient Egypt. So doing the acoustic design is very matching to the story of sound. So if the ancient Egyptians were using sound, number one, and this was approved by Egyptologists, for entertainment. I agree with this. I'm not denying sound for entertainment, chanting or singing. But to make a symbol, Hathor, and they call it, she is the knitter, which she explained it as goddess of magic, of music and sound. No, that's like we need to stop them. Okay, so from entertainment to make something that kind of sacred, no, it is now more than entertainment. And when we know that the false door, and they tell us that the spirit will cross that door, and there is certain formulas must be written to welcome the spirit, then my mind will say, okay, now we are not talking about singing or chanting, we are talking about certain way reading those glyphs to cause or to make certain sound. And immediately I bring the famous example, open sesame.
Right.
Remember that word?
I do.
The open sesame, they open the mountain with sound.
Right.
Okay, so why we don't believe that open sesame could be a reflection to the ancient Egyptian source? That sound is very important. And doing the acoustic design, which was made inside pyramids, like the two pyramids of Dahshur, Snefru pyramids, as they call it, the Pent Pyramid and the Red Pyramid,
right.
And they were made in many tombs between Giza Plateau and Dahshur in different designs, but still in an acoustic shape. So we must say, yes, they care too much about sound, and sound was
right.
one of the elements were used in ancient Egypt in a very wide scale.
Right, and you can tell that they were definitely made for sound when you're in there. That's for sure. And
yes.
Maybe even created with sound in some way. So let's talk about our tour a little bit and where we're going,
okay.
Places we're seeing, and what people can expect. I've been on a tour with you, and I have to say it was very professionally run. As far as transportation, security, I think a lot of people are scared, especially Westerners, to go to Egypt, and I don't know why. I even kind of had apprehension the first time I went, and then when I went there, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And the Egyptian people are warm and wonderful and loving, and I was very relieved.
Media is the reason?
Yes, media.
Okay.
Oh,
yes.
definitely.
Yeah, I keep telling people for a long, long time, Egypt is safe, don't worry, we are going out with our kids everywhere, we stay late after midnight, and if there is a problem in Egypt, our families, our friends, our neighbors are not going to practice their lives normally like this, not only for the local Egyptians, but also for tourists. But let me tell you this story about media, and people must be aware of media.
Yes.
I went to Lebanon 3 years ago, and we wanted to include a very special site called Baalbek in northeast Lebanon,
yes.
very close to the Syrian borders, only 30 kilometers away from the Syrian borders. I opened the TV, and that was my mistake. And I started to hear stories about how dangerous to go to Baalbek. Very dangerous. You can be easily killed, you can be kidnapped. So many frightening stories about the place and the borders. And believe me, I felt afraid. I'm the one who is telling people not to listen to media. I was like poisoned by the media. But
yes.
Immediately I turned it off the TV and decided not to believe anything. And the next morning, the whole group, it was a group from Egypt. We were doing American group in Egypt first, and then we made extension trip to Lebanon. We went to Baalbek. We spent one of the best days in our tour in Baalbek, completely safe, great fun, and we came back to Lebanon, to Beirut. And so that is my story. I'm telling this always to everybody. Be aware from the black media.
Yeah, the media.
Everywhere is safe. Yes.
Yes.
And especially in Egypt, that you will find that the Egyptian nation itself, against any crimes, against any terrorism, okay, and maybe something will happen, but you will not find Egypt a good environment for such crimes. No, it is denied by everybody. Okay, so this is my message to people. Millions of Egypt, hundreds of millions of Egypt visited Egypt before, and millions of or hundreds of millions of people are going to visit Egypt in the present and in the future.
Yeah.
So don't listen to
No, it's a bunch of BS. I will say that, and it's a lot of fear mongering. The media is all about fear mongering and keeping people in their little, cages.
And there is another thing also so very important to people to understand. I am going to follow I'm leading the tour, right? So if I feel any problem, I'm not going to sacrifice myself.
Self-preservation. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even if I will get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, no, I will not rescue my life. Okay.
Yep.
Not only me, I'm talking about thousands of tour guides, drivers, tour operators, flight agents, Nile cruises, trains. It's a great industry in Egypt. I believe you feel this when you were in my tour.
Oh, yes.
There is someone responsible for you.
Oh, yes. Okay. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Got picked up at the airport. Had somebody there. I don't even know what time I arrived. It was probably like 10 p.m. And there was somebody waiting there with the sign and assisted with the the visa, because you have to get your visa before you can go out of the airport. And got in the car, took us right to the hotel, and it was just, everything went so smoothly. It was efficient. There was no waiting or for anything, any of the sites we went to and meals, and it was wonderful. It was just absolutely seamless. It was seamless. There was no issues.
10 p.m., was a great timing for arrival. People come after midnight, they receive the same treatment. And if people have any requirement, any food restrictions, any allergies, we care about all such details. Okay.
Right.
And they need to say it once for us, and then we remember this every day or with every meal or every accommodation.
The views, the staff at the hotels, the accommodations, everything is just, it's 5-star the whole way. The Nile cruise. The cruise, I mean, you're cruising down the Nile and you're seeing sights on either side of the Nile, and you stay on the cruise ship, and then at certain points you get off and you go to certain sites. It's an amazing experience.
You know, when I started doing my own tours, the golden rule I made is, if I have a hotel with a view, my people must get rooms with that view. If it's overlooking the Nile, they must have Nile rooms. Overlooking the pyramid, because it doesn't make sense to put my back against the view. Okay?
Right.
So this is what we will have this in our tour. We will stay on hotels facing the pyramid, so we will have pyramid view, and not any pyramid view. It will be front side.
Right.
Because some rooms with side view, okay, or slightly, if they look like this, they can see the pyramid, but we will have front view, okay. And at Luxor, we will have front Nile view. At the boat, both sides are view, so it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the boats also have decks on top that are amazing. You can go up there for sunset, sunrise, and you have a complete 360-degree view of everything. So it's
this is what
amazing.
I always recommend my people. Stay as much as you can, as long as you can, at the sun deck, so they can realize and they can see what I call it the great harmonical colors, the blue, the green, the yellow, and the blue again.
Right.
Water, the field, the desert, and the sky.
Right.
Great combination. I can't resist seeing this view for hours.
Right.
And above all of this, we make sure that we give the best treatment to our people. And as you mentioned, we provide them daily with water bottles from the bus for free.
Yep.
And I don't think there is any other company are doing this. In the beginning of this business, I put a condition in saying 2 bottles per day, but I found that 2 bottles are not enough. So I said 4 bottles per day, but now it is like unlimited, so people can take what they want. Okay.
Yeah, that's very helpful when you're, especially
And
when you're in
also,
dry climate.
and we make sure, look, most of the restaurants in Egypt in a very good way, and they offer very good, nice, high quality food, but we still choose the best of the best.
Yes.
Okay? And I believe you will not forget that meal at Saqqara Balma Club. Okay?
Oh.
One of the best, and I'll make sure every time to make a short video about it.
Yeah, I think I gained
Okay.
like 5 pounds during that meal. There was so much good food. I was just like, wow, I mean, the food's amazing in Egypt. The food is absolutely amazing. And there's a lot of surprises on the tour. A lot of things that we will do that, you can't put every single detail down. Places we'll visit. Highlights for me were always like Radwan jewelry or certain jewelry places or it's papyrus, essential oils. Those things are all cultural to modern day and ancient Egypt, and I think they're really important, and it enhances the experience. Definitely enhances the experience. So leave
So
room in your
because
suitcase.
you will find something very important in this tour, that I am also enjoying myself.
Yes.
I'm not guiding you, giving you instructions and information. I want to enjoy this tour the same like you. So I'm doing every possible way for you to enjoy the tour and also for me to enjoy it.
It's like 24/7, just bombarding your senses with beauty and culture. It's the most amazing thing I think I've ever done. Pretty
True.
much.
And in our tour also, people are going to contact the ancient history of Egypt, will contact the ancient sites, and will contact the locals, which
Yes.
is very important. Okay. I am from the countryside originally, but I live now in the big city. But I know almost everybody in every site.
Yes.
So you'll find yourself welcomed everywhere. People will be very happy to serve you. We will drink tea in most of the places from the local guards. We will sit in coffee shops. We will deal with modern Egypt also.
Yes.
Because I found for a long time that there are some people, when they come, tourists, they see Egypt from behind the windows, from behind the glass, sitting in the bus, visiting the site, return back to the hotel, and they don't go, and that's it. As if they are reading a virtual book about Egypt.
Yep.
Okay.
And
but in our tour, no.
Nope.
Yeah, we are not going to do this. You will return back to your homeland with complete story, with complete feeling about Egypt from different aspects, from history, from modern life, locals, traditions, okay, and different types of entertainment. So it will be a great experience.
It is. It's a totally immersive experience in the culture. You're immersed in the culture, and I remember, I forget what site. I mean, it was every site pretty much, but I remember being at somewhere extremely like sacred, and all of a sudden somebody was bringing me tea. I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Yeah, it's.
At the open air museum at Karnak, at Abydos, at Saqqara, yeah, everywhere. As I said, all the guards are our friends, and
Yes.
we are in a great relation with them. Most of them are very helpful. Okay, so they love to help us and to show hospitality to our groups.
Yes. Your presence, just being in these places, you will have profound experiences. It is a guarantee. I guarantee you.
Sure.
Yes.
You know, all what they need is someone like you and like me to lead them to the place, the right place, the right moment,
Hmm.
and then they will get the feeling.
Right.
Look, I worked with so many famous names and so many spiritual leaders. I will not say they do nothing, but as I say, as if you are pushing a running car. So if you don't push, it is already running.
Right.
So that is the story, that when you go to the place, the energy and the feeling is there.
Right.
Just clear your mind, be ready, and you will receive it. And I must tell everybody that all the elements in our tour with our price, our great price, is the same items like any expensive tool,
Right.
maybe more, and much
Yeah, that's
better.
true.
And I know what I'm talking about.
Yes, he
Okay,
definitely does.
so not because we are offering a price maybe 1,000 or like $1,500 less than the others, so it means we are going to offer cheaper items or cheaper services. No, believe me, it is the opposite. We are offering higher quality and higher services, because this is my business for almost 17 years now. I know how and when I can get the best service with the best price.
Right.
Okay, so our people, I can, as you said, you guarantee them they will get the feeling. Also, I guarantee that they will get the best service,
Right.
and they will get the highest quality available.
I have all the itinerary on my website and any information, or we can contact Mohamed directly on Facebook, or contact me directly on Facebook. Or my website is www.mermuse.com. The tour is all up there. And Mohamed, is it okay if people contact you through Facebook directly through Messenger,
Huh?
or do you prefer email?
No problem. What they prefer. I'm like checking my email daily,
Yep.
and I'm always on Facebook.
Right.
So yeah, if they choose any of the two, I will see it, I will read it, I will reply. Okay.
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 All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching, and we hope to see you on our tours and visit the website. And any questions you have, please feel free to contact us. Thank you.